Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Necrons. So in today's video we're going to be asking ourselves, why is the Hexmark Destroyer so good for 10th edition? So we're going to get into the Hexmark Destroyer's data card and of course give our Planet 40k rating at the end of our video. Guys, also we've got our membership area. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not. If you hit that join button down below, it will give you more information about the perks and privileges of just joining the membership area. All the money that's donated to the channel literally comes back into this room, whether it's paint, whether it's camera kits and lighting, microphones. We are going to start doing battle reports. Now I don't know when. We've got the plan, we've already got the list built, we've got the planning going on. I might need to buy a few more things, so that's why I'm pushing this really. And yeah, battle reports is coming. And we're going to kind of see on how good they do. If they do well, we'll carry on doing them. If they don't do that well, then we'll just put them aside and sort of leave them be. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing in the future. As for today's video though, the Hexmark Destroyer, let's get into the data card. Right, so we have got a 70-point model with a character and an infantry. Now there's no epic hero here, so we can take enhancements. He is 70 points. He used to be 65, so he's gone up by 5. But believe me guys, the 5 points is probably worth it. This model is equipped with the Emetic Disintegrator pistols as well as a close combat weapon. So the statistics first. The movement is 7 inches, we've gone down by 1 inch. Yep, that's cool, we know that. I think all the rest of the stats are as they were. Toughness 5, 3 plus armor, 5 wounds. Obviously the new statistics here, leadership 6 plus and objective control is 1. So not that busy on the objective control front. The ranged weapon is probably the main, well, one of the main things about the data card. Let's get into it. So the Emetic Disintegrator pistols are of course pistols, so they can be fired into engagement range if you wished. They've also got precision, which is nice because we can target characters even if they're hidden within units. Lovely. They've got 18-inch range, 6 attacks or 6 shots, ballistic skill 2 plus, strength 6, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. So this is one of those rare times where AP has gone up rather than down. So it used to be minus 1 AP. So that's pretty good for, again, targeting characters with precision. So if you were going up against a toughness 5 character, as an example, with your 6 shots, you're going to get on average 5 hits and approximately 3.3 wounds. I'm going to go with decimal points for the moment here. Of course, dice are dice and you either get 3 or 4. Now, of course, they're going to make their armor saves or invuln saves. I mean, if it is an invuln save, a 4 plus invuln, it means 1.66 is going to go past the invuln save. Now, these are only 1 damage, so you're going to score either 1 or 2 damage at that time. If it's against a non-invuln character with a, a 3 plus armor save, that will go to a 5 plus armor save because of the minus 2 AP, providing that there's no cover. And that's going to do on average 2.2 wounds with all said and done. So that's just 1 turn of shooting there, don't forget. Now maybe it would be a good time to use the command protocol of Conquering Tyrant for the re-rolls or wound rolls, maybe. I mean, if there's a character there like an apothecary that doesn't have an invuln save, you only need 4 wounds to go through to actually get rid of it. It might be a good time. It probably will still take a couple of turns to get rid of it. So maybe on the second wave of shooting you would consider it. But yeah, a decent weapon overall. Now we've got the melee weapon, which is a close combat weapon with 4 attacks, weapon skill 3 plus, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage. Now realistically, you don't want him in engagement range. Ideally, in fact, you don't want him within 12 inches of anyone. And this is why. It's on the right side of the data card. It's the core abilities. First of all, you've got Deep Strike. So Deep Strike, you're just coming in, turn 2 onwards. That's going to be very handy for your secondary objectives. But what we were just talking about in terms of not wanting units within 12 is because of the lone operative ability. So he cannot be targeted at range unless the enemy unit is within 12 inches. So if you keep him 12 inches back at all times, he can't be targeted, as simple as that. I mean, we've obviously lost Lookout Sir, which was an old edition thing. He used to have that. But now lone operative is still pretty good. And it's not only good for when you're hiding behind all your banks of warriors and stuff, but it's also good when you're doing a deep strike. When you're coming in from turn 2, turn 3, enemy backlines right in the corner, maybe you're doing investigate signal or something, and your opponent has pushed most of their army forward, maybe they're a really offensive army, they're going to have to now come back just to deal with him, and if there's some sort of terrain there, even better. So the lone operative is a real strong ability, not just for the Hexmark Destroyer, but in general for 40k. The faction ability, of course, reanimation protocols to be regaining D3 lost wounds in each of our command phases. And the 2 unique abilities are very unique and they are very, very strong. The first one, inescapable death. Once per turn, you can effectively use Overwatch for free, even if you've already done so in that phase. And when you're doing your Overwatch, this is even more unique because you're doing it on a 2+ rather than a 6+ when you're firing your Overwatch shots, which is pretty good. I mean, he did used to have that, but we're now being able to use this stratagem even if you've already used it this phase. And if you've got an Overlord doing it with their My Will Be Done ability, they can also do it even if it's being used that phase too with their unit. Maybe it's Immortals or something. So in theory you could use this 3 times, but if you've got multiple Hexmark destroyers, only one of these models can use this because it says once per turn, 1 unit from your army with this ability. So only one of your Hexmark destroyers can actually use this ability. Now the second ability, Multi-Threat Eliminator, is another really cool one. This one's super strong. Each time an enemy unit targets a friendly Necron unit within 3 inches of this model with range attacks, after the enemy unit is shot, this model can shoot as if it was our shooting base. Let's talk about that for a moment. In fact, let's go. I've got a few little screens for you. What I like to do here is I like to make sure your Hexmark destroyer is more than 12 inches away from enemy units, but within 18. That's the sweet spot because you can fire at them. Now that's not always that simple, but if you've got a load of screens in front of it, a load of Necron warriors potentially, which means your enemy units cannot physically get to the Hexmark destroyer or get within range of it, then they've got to take down the screen. They've got to take down those Necron warriors, or maybe it's scarabs. They've got to target them first, but as soon as they target them, then happy days, we get to fire at 18-inch range with our weapons. And if there's a character there, even better, we've got precision, right? So another really cool ability, and you could be using that as many times as you want, with as many Hexmark destroyers as you want. In fact, that's what's mad about it. You can literally keep using this ability multiple times in a turn. Now we did used to be able to reroll hit rolls over 1, that has gone, but yeah, I don't think we need it. I think these abilities are much better, much more improved for 10th edition. Now let's get onto the synergy side of Hexmark Destroyer. We've already spoke about the command protocol of Conquering Tyrant to be able to reroll your win rolls. Situational, but you've got it as an option there if you want it. If there's an apothecary on its last legs and you want to get rid of it, just bang that 1 CP out and do so. You've got the enhancement option of the Sovereign Corona because of course he's not an epic hero, so we can take this enhancement, and Necron units within 6 inches are going to act as if they are being led. So this could be your Doomsday Arc, your Canoptic Doomstalkers. They're going to get a +1 to their hit roll because of course they can't have a character within their unit, but with this enhancement they effectively do. They get the powers of being led. So those Doomsday Arcs are going to be hitting on 2s. I mean, they're likely hitting on 2s anyway because they're staying stationary and they've got heavy. But if you do need to move, then you've still got that +1 to the hit roll there. Other options with this Sovereign Corolla, in fact, you can maybe use this with the Locust Heavy Destroyers, with the Gorse Destructors. You could have a Locust Lord for the +1 to the hit roll, but I think the Locust Lord only really works with the Exterminator weapons. There's no need for having a Locust Lord when you've only got 3 shots with the Destructors. So maybe this Hexmark Destroyer can not only be helping those Doomsday Arcs, but also the Heavy Destroyers. You can use your big things, you can use your Monolith, you can use your Obelisk, anything big that can get a +1 to the hit roll with their firing attacks. And it doesn't even have to necessarily just be firing attacks, it could also be melee too, don't forget. You could use the Protocol of Eternal Guardian. If he does go down, you can bring him back up again for 1 command point with half of its starting number of wounds. So of course he started on 5, so I believe that would be 3 wounds. He's coming back with 3 wounds because you always round up. You could be using a Technomancer nearby with a Technomancer's ability to heal D3 lost wounds, which can of course combine quite nicely with a Canoptic Reanimator to also give you D3. I mean, that's probably overkill there, you don't need that with only a 5 wound model, but one of them will probably suffice to get you back to full wounds. And I wanted to throw in a few little extra mentions here. One for the Death Marks. They've also got their precision ability on their weaponry, so they could tag team up against a certain character. And I also wanted to throw in the Ghost Arc. Now the Ghost Arc has absolutely 0 to do with the Hexmark Destroyer in terms of the abilities. However, when you are fielding a Ghost Arc, you need to have something embarked in the actual Ghost Arc in order to field it. And you've only got the options of 10 Necron Warriors or a character or both. Now, no one really takes Necron Warriors in 10s, they're better in 20s, so realistically it's a character. And then you've only got options of really a Royal Warden, but a bit of a waste. I mean, it's the cheaper way to do it. You've got a Technomancer with the Lone Operative ability with the Canoptic Cloak. I think that's probably still a little bit wasteful. Or you've got the Hexmark Destroyer, which is going to go on his own anyway. So I would just take the Hexmark Destroyer, he can pop out and then do all of his Overwatch shenanigans. Right, let's get on to the battlefield role for the Hexmark Destroyer. This is kind of the reason why he's a really good unit, I suppose. There's a lot to talk about here. So multi-threat eliminator, we kind of already mentioned already. That's one of his main roles because he can be just shooting, even though it's your opponent's turn, just firing out, firing out, firing out as soon as anything gets targeted within 3 inches. The free Overwatch is also going to be very useful. Make use of it as free. So again, that's in your opponent's turn. This time it's the movement phase or the charge phase. So maybe in the movement phase you bang out Overwatch. Then in their shooting phase you're going to be shooting with a multi-threat eliminator multiple times potentially. You're going to be shooting all the time with this guy. Bearing in mind it's got precisions, which is a third bullet point I've got here. I know this feels a little bit like the pros and cons, but they are quite similar. With precision, that's the battlefield role. You're going to be trying to take out characters where possible, which will actually relate to one of the secondaries, because he can be doing secondary objectives behind enemy lines with deep strike, investigate signal, engage on all fronts, deploy teleport homers, and assassination, as we've just mentioned, because he's got precision. So he's got some uses with the secondary objectives. He's a Ghost Arc filler, as we've just said, and the Sovereign Coronal could be something that he holds for boosting your shooty gunline. So let's get on to the pros and cons. In fact, he's a cheap character. He did go up in points value, but I think it was way worth it. It was really good. He's a lone operative as well, so he can't be targeted unless you're within 12. Deep strike on top of that. If you didn't want him to be playing in your end of the battlefield, he could be going up the other end and doing all your objectives. For your secondary scoring, again, investigate signal was a good one. Deploy teleport homer behind enemy lines. Precision shots from 18-inch range is pretty nice, especially if they can't target us, because they need to get within 12. Pistols can shoot into engagement range, not ideally where you want him to be, but you can do it. Free Overwatch, hit on 2s, yep, lovely. And the multi-threat eliminator, of course, that's the main thing about this guy. He's filling up a Ghost Arc if you wanted to take a Ghost Arc, and he can take the Sovereign Coronal enhancement, along with the other enhancements if you wanted to. You can take one of the others instead of the Sovereign Coronal, but really, the Veil of Darkness doesn't really need it. Hypermaterial Ablator doesn't really work with him, and the Sempiternal Wave doesn't really need it. So, yeah, there's only really one enhancement for him to take with this dynasty. As for the cons, his weapons are only 1 damage, they're only 1 damage shots, so it will take a few turns to get rid of characters, maybe even 3. Not ideal, but I think 2 damage would probably be overkill. He's got no invulnerable save, so once you do get within 12 inches, it's kind of trouble. It is trouble. He will just get targeted and he will go down. He's literally only Toughness 5 with 6 wounds. So, with that 3+ armor save, it's not going to last that long. Yes, like we just mentioned, you could put the Sempiternal Weave on him, and maybe you've got 10 points spare, so you just throw it on him. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. But really, you want to save that for the Transcendent Catan or your Command Barge or something. Right, let's get on to, well, we kind of know where this is going already, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. This is, of course, a 5-star rating. This video was mainly to show you why he's a 5-star rating. He is extremely good. I would take him in every single list, virtually an auto include. So guys, I hope you found this informative. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.